Alexander, and you are on the Artist Grapevine. And today, my guest is local Bloomington artist Heather Gwinn.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I
It's
am
been a minute. I
fantastic.
hadn't seen you in a while.
It's been a while.
I know it has. It has. And yeah. And so, what do you think of the? What do you think of the little studio?
I dig the Lady Cove.
Yeah,
It is nice.
it's
It is
just
pint size.
it is.
Cozy.
It's just a little too small for me. I'm squeezing myself into it like I'm a sardine in a can.
It's true.
But
I saw you tried to get up on that.
But
was not easy.
it's a perfect little spot, like a little nook here for us to have a little conversation and talk a little bit about your artwork.
Let's do it.
And that's why we're here today. Today we're going to talk about. I want to talk about a little bit about like what it is you do, what it is that you're like, what's your artistic goals, and basically like you have a very different approach to selling your artwork or distributing your artwork. However, I mean, because you don't really want to sell your artwork, correct? You want to make sure people get it.
Right. I mean, and that implies selling it. I mean,
right.
There
is a matter of transaction, but it's different than most artists. Because myself as an artist, I try to sell my artwork to the public. And I try to get, whatever the market will bear, which is, I think, pretty much what most artists, I think we can all agree upon, like to do. They want to try to get what their artwork is worth. Where you, on the other hand, have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a more of a therapeutic approach. You enjoy the process of making art and then the joy of giving it to someone for an affordable way.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that the notion that I always walk into it with is I'm going to create it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to make it, whether it sells or not is sort of it's a secondary thing. I do like selling it. I like people taking it to other homes. I like rehoming them sort of and giving them a life somewhere else. I think art should be consumed, and I think that there's a lot of barriers to people particularly owning original art, because the art market will support much higher values, but then you have families with small kids who can't, they can't drop several $100s for an original pen and ink. But if you buy an original pen and ink, even if it's for $20 or $25, and you tell your kids, like, we bought some original art, they see value in investing, they see value in art, and they can have that experience because I don't need the money. I'm not selling it for that kind of profit. And so, yeah, it's important to me, I think, to get art out there. It's also important to me to not place too much financial value on it for myself. If I start making, I did this, I started drawing in 2012. 2012 I started drawing. I started selling in 2013. And about 2014, 2015, I was making a fair bit of money. I was selling prints. I had limited edition prints. I had a lot of originals, and I was starting to get a lot of commissions. And it turned into, weirdly, a job. It turned into something that I felt an obligation to create things people wanted to buy. And I was miserable. I hated it. I hated every moment of creating. It turned into yet one more job I had to do, and I was already a parent. And
I think we've all been there as artists. I mean, there's been a lot of times when we've not really wanted to create the art we were making, and we seem to be like somewhat driven by monetary gain. And it's always nice when you can create something that you love and then somebody buys it. That's always the most rewarding.
Right, and there is that financial validation that I get, and I try to be cautious with it, because it doesn't mean that my artwork is inherently worth more than if I sell it for $5 or if I sell it for $500. But it is validating when you have somebody who's willing to drop $500 on something that, particularly that I made for fun. It's so it's rewarding. It's an honor, I think, to have people invest like that.
Nice. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what the mediums that you use for the viewer? Like what you would use? Like, what do you prefer?
I started with pen and ink because it came easily to me. It's easy to transport, and it's just nice. It feels comfortable to me. I've been oil painting now for about 5 years, and it's my preference.
Yeah,
it's much more challenging.
I tried oil painting and I liked it, but the mess for me was like probably the main detractor.
Oh no, it's messy.
It is.
Yeah, no, it gets everywhere.
The cleanup is, and if I have to get off to somewhere, Because like you, I work a 9 to 5 job. So
Right.
usually I'm working right up to the point where I have to go to work. I have to leave for work. So to have to go into the bathroom and have to clean it up is like, I want that time to be as minimal as possible so I can get right out on the road.
Right, and that's the advantage of like pen and ink, where
Yeah.
you can just, you sit down, you can draw something, you can put a cap on, and you walk away and you're finished. And no, with oil paints, you have to clean all your brushes and you have to tend to things. And
I had an instructor in art school, and he used to say that it was the reason why all of his pants, all his clothes were black.
Right.
Because when he worked in pen and ink, if any of it got on him, it didn't stain his clothes.
That was no big deal. Yeah.
Which is, I thought was brilliant, you know. And every time you'd see him, he'd have a black shirt on, or he'd have a black pair of pants,
I never
black
get
shoes.
ink on myself. I get paint on myself. I've ruined all my clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, I have paint every. Blue is the worst.
Ink for me was the worst. I mean, I'd have it all over my fingers. But I loved working with pen and ink.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of fun to be able to do artwork with pen and ink. Getting handy with a brush.
What about acrylics? Do you use acrylics?
Yeah, acrylic painting is fine because it dries fast. I can get it out the door.
But it's so full of itself. I mean, it just really just dries on its own. It doesn't want to communicate and talk.
Yeah,
and it's not.
It's one of those things where you got to work
It's so
fast.
sure of itself.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm on the canvas and I'm done.
And I don't think acrylic, the medium of acrylic paint has been around that long. I think it's a fairly new invention, like within like the last 50, 60 years.
For real?
I think so.
Wow.
Yeah, it's more of a water based, but I mean, there's always been other things too. But I think it had to be more of a. I think it's manufactured. You know, it was like, I think it was something between oil and maybe gouache and watercolor, and they were like, well, we got to find something that's kind of in between that.
Right.
You know, because I think you always had like tempera and gouache and then watercolor, but then once you get to like the oil, you know, that's the big jump.
Right.
Because that's like super opaque.
But it's fantastic.
Yeah. But then you've got this new thing, this acrylic, which is in between watercolor. It's water based. It's not oil based.
And it's so handy to clean up. I bought some acrylics the other day. I thought I'd give it a try. I mean, I tried acrylics in 2016, I think I tried acrylics, and I have a couple of paintings I did, and it was fine. I mean, they're fine, but it just didn't really work for me. But I decided to try it again, and it's still not great. I think it has a place in the studio. Like, I think, especially if you're doing oil painting, you can do acrylic backgrounds, you can do lots of different things with texture, and then let it all dry, and then throw some oils on top. And I think it has a place there, but it's not my medium for sure.
Good, great.
But yeah, from a material standpoint, I mean, I do the oil painting, but I've been doing work on lampshades, fabric art, wood, basically any kind of surface that I can find. In the last year, I started branching out into trying new things, which is, I mean, and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, but one of the perks of having a Patreon and having patrons who every month, I don't know why, but they just literally give me money because they like my work. It's the craziest thing. But it lets me try things. I tried some linoleum prints this past year just because I had the funds to buy materials and experiment and try without fear of investment and things, which is brilliant. It's an adventure. It's exciting.